Okay. So once again, welcome. My name is Darren Lokema. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Compliance and Information Systems. On behalf of the District Superintendent, Mr. Jose Carrion, I want to thank our families for joining us on the Grade 12 WCSD Reopening Parent Forum. This forum is being recorded and co-presented by Dr. Michelle Cardwell, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Welcome to all of our families. The first part of our meeting today will be to go through a PowerPoint slide, some slides that will hopefully help illustrate some of the decision making we've had, the processes that we've had when it comes to making decisions about schools being open only for remote instruction in September. We're going to provide answers to some of the most commonly asked questions that came out of the parent forum, the survey that was completed last week, and provide everyone on this event to have an opportunity to ask additional questions based either on what we present or on information that we did not address in this presentation. So by all means, please input questions into the chat screen, and we will get going. Just know also, yes, this is called the grade 12 community forum, but we understand that there might be other people who there'll be other people from other different grade levels on this as well. So we anticipate questions from all grades. And the reality is that the presentation that we're sharing today is pretty much the same one that we've done for all grades. What makes these forums unique is probably the questions at the end. We wanted to make sure that we offered enough sessions, so we did one per grade level to ensure that our online tool that we're using for this did not get over inundated and oversubscribed, and thus not allowing everyone to join who wanted to. So we erred on the side of caution, and we're offering 15 sessions. So thank you to all who have joined once again. The first couple of slides are going to go over some expectations that came out of the New York State Education Department. This is a clickable link up here, so when the presentation is made available in the morning tomorrow, you'll be able to click that link if you want to. And the basic premise that was mandated, we're not going to go through all this. We're not going to read the slides. We're just going to go through them very quickly. From the teaching and learning aspect, one of the big takeaways that New York State had advised us, and we want to share with you, is that we are supposed to, in our remote learning plans, ensure substantial daily interaction between teachers and students. So that's an important takeaway. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of that we understand that the state of New York is asking that we all make sure that there is substantial daily interaction between teachers and students with all remote learning. The state of New York has also said that we need to make sure that we are addressing students' social and emotional well-being. We know that students have been out of school for a long time. They have not been around their peers. They have not been around in the structure of school. I know we're talking about our seniors. Our seniors are excited for their senior year. This is probably not the way they want their senior year to start. We are certainly sorry that they are living through this in this particular time, but we're going to make the best of it as best we can. The state has asked that we provide intentional and meaningful social and emotional curriculum and embed that in all the different content areas of the subjects we teach. That way we're not just addressing the physical health needs of our students, but our social and emotional health as well. The State Education Department has also advised that we must continue to work with our parents, especially when it comes to students with disabilities, and ensuring that all the accommodations are being met to the greatest extent possible, even if we're doing remote instruction. What can we do to make sure that that our students are all receiving a free and appropriate public education, and that the accommodations are being put in place to help give our students of higher need, the tools that they need to at least be able to receive the content of the curriculum with their peer level, with their grade level peers. Something that we're not mandated to do in the spring, if you will, but we are in the fall, is the idea of having to take daily attendance for our students. The state has said that daily attendance must be entered as if it was basically would be normally done on a school day. So we're anticipating something that looks like period by period attendance. We're not sure, 100% sure what it's going to look like. Undoubtedly, that will result in those robocalls that you were used to in the past. If your son or daughter was absent from school, For a certain number of periods of the day at the high school level, you would generate a robocall indicating that your student was absent from school. It is absolutely possible that there'll be some mistakes made. It'll be trial and error. There might be some mistakes made in terms of getting false alerts on an absence. So if you don't believe that absence call is correct, you could always call the school. Don't be mad at us. We're going to try and make this happen as accurately as possible, but initially maybe not. Just let the school know that you received a call and error, and that we could always update the attendance record. The next couple of slides have to do with information received from the New York State Governor's Office in his two most recent news conferences that related to opening schools. The first one came on July 13th, the news conference, and he talked about the state formula for opening schools. And the state formula said that if your region, the region that we're in is Mid-Hudson, if our region is in phase 4, which the entire state is in phase 4 right now, and the daily infection rate remained below 5%, we would be able to open our schools. That was as of July 13th, and our schools would be closed if our region's infection rate rose above 9%. So it was no surprise to us when on August 7th, the governor said all schools across the state can in fact open. The next couple of slides, and this is a clickable link at the top to the New York State Governor's address. The next couple of slides are excerpts from the governor's address. They are quotations that came out of the governor's address and ones that helped shape some of the decision making early on for us after this news conference was provided to the districts or to the community, to the public as a whole. He noted, of course, that he understands that there's a significant level of anxiety and concern between parents and teachers, but he wanted also the district to do, he said 2 things, but he listed 3. One was post their remote learning plan, so taking out of our district reopening plan the remote learning plan component and providing a more clear, concise definition of what remote learning is in our district. So we are working on that, providing a plan for health screening for staff and students. We are working on that, and providing a more concise and complete plan for contact tracing. And with help, we are working on that as well. So with that in mind, we do I want to just go over some, and so with that in mind too, that the governor said that that we need to have at least 3 opportunities for parents to participate in a conference with the district. Obviously, we just talked about it. This is technically opportunity number 14, and so we continue to offer these as opportunities for our staff. We also are being asked to provide at least 1 meeting with our teachers, which we're certainly going to do. But our at one point during that news address, the governor had received a question from one of the reporters in the room asking about asymptomatic people and testing for that. And so the governor went on to say that one of the top 5 questions I am asked is, how do we prevent asymptomatic people from infecting other people in schools, similar to how people got infected in nursing homes? The New York State governor's response to that included, some school districts have a better answer than others. It is up to the local district to come up with a plan. Yes, temperature taking is a concern. Test a child who has a temperature, but what about asymptomatic spread? How do you detect asymptomatic spread when the only way you can detect asymptomatic spread is when you get sick? He went on to say, but that is a very good question, one that local school districts have to answer. We were taken aback by this, to be honest with you, a little bit, when because obviously we're educators, we're not medical health professionals. So when the governor said that there was going to be up to the responsibility of the local school districts to come up with ways of determining who might be asymptomatic in our schools, that's something we did not think we were prepared to do. But the governor did go on to say, that you need 2 things to open schools: students and teachers. Students you cannot force back, and you don't want to get into a legal battle with teachers. They cannot teach if they do not feel safe. You cannot order a teacher into a classroom and tell them to teach if they do not feel safe. I'm telling you, there's going to need to be significant discussions. They, the teachers, raise important issues. They need to be comfortable. So we're a very large district. I think the next slide will illustrate that, how large we are compared to our peers in the county. We know that we have a lot of responsibilities to our families, to our faculty, staff, students especially, with regards to making sure that we're providing a safe learning environment for all of our students. So we made the decision early on, and a lot of districts have followed suit, to begin the school year remotely. in September. And just to get a sense as to how large we are compared to other schools in the county, this chart shows 13 school districts in our county. The smallest of which is Weavatuck with 653 students. That's K to 12. So K to 12, 653 students compared to Wappingers of 10,645 students. That's last year's enrollment numbers. A lot of times we compare to Arlington in terms of size. Arlington is big, but you can see that we are still significantly larger than they are as well. The superintendent thought it was important then to see how many other districts in our area were thinking about starting remotely when in comparison to their size. So he asked districts in Dutchess, Orange, Rockland, Westchester, and Putnam counties who have more than 6,000 students enrolled what their entry plans were for September. So with the exception of Haverstraw, and I know Clarkstown says hybrid, we got to fix that. With the exception of Haverstraw, all the 10 other schools, including ourselves, have identified they'll be starting the school year remotely. Yesterday, that's why it still says hybrid, it was blue. Yesterday, Clarkstown started the day saying we were going to be going hybrid, but by the end of the day, there was a news article went out that said they changed their mind. 2 days ago, White Plains was a similar boat. They did say hybrid, and now they're saying, nope, we're going to go all remote. This slide, and by now, because this is the last presentation for our grade levels, you probably have seen this or heard of this, but this is a clickable link up here at the top. I'm going to click this link, and we're going to go into a PDF that's going to show what our instructional delivery timeline is as we transition from remote to hybrid learning. All students K to 12 will begin with remote learning starting the week of September 10th. Or starting on September 10th, rather. And as you can see, as time goes on, by the end of September, we're going to be starting our hybrid transition for our K-1-2 students, which arguably would certainly be our students in one of the greatest needs, because it's going to be very difficult for them to do remote learning right out of the gate for sure. And then followed by grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then all of 9, 12 by the end of October. But along the way, we're going to take the time to assess and evaluate our processes and procedures and make sure that we are, in fact, ready to go, and that our procedures for health screening and our communication plans and our social distancing plans, et cetera, and how students are eating their meals at school, et cetera, and so forth, our cleaning schedules, et cetera, and so forth, are working the way we intended to be. And if not, then this gives us some time to make adjustments as we go. Back to the presentation, you might have already be aware that the students will be divided into two groups, cohort A and B, based on the alphabet. So cohort A will be groups A to K. Students with last names that begin with letters A to K. Students with last name begin with letters L to Z will be cohort B. The chart at the bottom shows the attendance schedule in a hybrid learning environment for those cohorts. Cohort A will be in-person learning Monday, Tuesday. Will be remote Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Converse, cohort B will be remote Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it'll be in-person Thursday, Friday. When we provided the parent survey, we had 11 different categories for parents to submit questions about each category as it related to our plan. So right here is a list of different categories, and what we're going to do is we're going to start with the teaching and learning category, and we're going to have Dr. Michelle Cardwell address some of the questions that came up for teaching and learning, as well as some of our athletics and extracurricular activities. So I'm going to take pause and turn the microphone over to Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Lokema, and good afternoon, everyone. So by now, you know that students will be returning to school September 10th using a full remote model. So the question is, well, what will remote teaching look like September 10th? So teachers will be providing students with both synchronous and asynchronous instruction during that time. Specific schedules will be sent out to families and students regarding the length of time students will be online for live learning, as well as other information. So that will be shared prior to the first day of school. We are hoping for the end of August, beginning of September, for the schedules to be prepared and to be sent out. And Darren, can you switch the slides over, please? Okay, you can move on to the next one. So when students are switching from the remote model to the hybrid model. Students, for example, in cohort A will have in-person instruction on Monday and Tuesday. A teacher may provide on Wednesday to both cohorts of students synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. And on Thursday and Friday, where cohort A is expected to work remotely, students will be provided with asynchronous activities. Once we get closer to when hybrid model will be in effect for the high school, you will receive additional information and particulars about what that instruction will look like. We are looking at for a full day for hybrid learning when students are to report to school, but all this is subject to change based upon the situation. We also understand that there may be some conflicts that come up with synchronous learning activities, and any conflicts that may arise, we ask that you speak with your building administrator and or your child's teacher, and we will resolve those conflicts specific to those unique circumstances. The district is working on finalizing all the remote learning details, in particular with synchronous instructional times with the Wappingers Congress of Teachers and the Wappingers Administrators Association. We are also working on putting on the final touches on the grading procedures. We do understand, especially for our juniors and seniors, the importance of ensuring that a student's GPA and ranking are not negatively impacted. So we are looking at various different grading scenarios, and that information will be shared with students and families. We know that there is a lot of work that we need to do prior to opening school for remote learning and for hybrid model. We have 5 professional development days scheduled at the beginning of the school year. We will focus on all aspects of health and safety, making sure we're following all guidelines, making sure the teachers and other staff members are prepared to receive students and keep everyone as safe as possible. We also know that there is a lot of work regarding teaching and learning in a remote environment, as well as a hybrid model that we need to focus on. We will also be addressing social and emotional learning through the curriculum to make sure that any students who may be negatively impacted by the extended school closures receive the support that they need. Some other information regarding seniors that's important would be the time spent with guidance counselors. I saw in the chat a question whether or not guidance counselors will be meeting in person with their students. While all students are still home learning remotely and the buildings are closed to students, in-person meetings will not be held. However, the school counselors will be in contact with the students as necessary to schedule individual meetings and or small group meetings. And please have your student email the guidance counselors and or the cohort assistant principal for additional information once school starts. Our school counselors are in contact with and will continue to be in contact with the admissions office at various colleges. We are aware that some of the application requirements have been revised, such as some colleges are no longer requiring the SAT because students haven't been able to take them. So all that information will be discussed and shared with yourselves and your children, either during these group meetings, and I am sure we will be scheduling some parent workshops virtually within the near future to address those specific concerns. All right, so the moment we've been waiting for, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. So in the beginning to middle of August, the Public High School Athletic Association indicated that they were going to push the fall season back from mid-August to September 21st. This allowed them some time to assess the situation. As of now, we have no further information. So from what we know, the state is still expected to begin fall sports Monday, September 21st. However, we do not have information on whether or not that will be a full season, a modified season, or specific sport. So we are still waiting for that information from the Athletic Association. We do know that all fall regional and state championship events have been canceled. We also understand the importance of extracurricular activities and the importance they have on developing well-rounded students. We will consider phasing in extracurricular activities remotely when necessary. When we do return to in-person school, we will also look at the availability of having some of these activities return in person. Each of these activities will be discussed with the building administration and a decision will be made. Unfortunately, concerts and theater productions are tentatively not being scheduled for the first semester. We will continue to have the conversation and make a decision on whether or not to allow concerts and theater productions to happen in the second half of the school year. We will make those determinations as we continue to monitor the situation for the district, the county, and the state. There will be music, band, chorus, and orchestra. While we are virtual, the teachers will be conducting lessons synchronously and asynchronously, and your students will receive that information on those times from the classroom teacher. When students are to report to school, when we transition to the hybrid model, we will make sure that all appropriate social distancing guidelines are in effect, and no students will need to share any instruments and stand and or equipment. We will also make sure that we follow all social distancing guidelines regarding physical education. At this time, we're still discussing the need for students to change the physical education. So all that information will be shared once it becomes available. Any of the surfaces that require to be cleaned and sanitized, such as any equipment, will be done so according to appropriate guidelines. And at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Mr. Lokema. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next category was child nutrition. The number of questions came up through there. Yes, students will be able to bring their lunches to school if they wish. There'll be a very limited menu selection at the high schools. We're not sure what the cafeteria situation is going to look like in terms of scheduling and eating lunch in the cafeteria. They're the largest cafeterias we have in the district, being at our high schools, but we still have, usually even with half the students in the building, there would still be quite a number of students who would be technically scheduled to have lunch. So we're going to leave it up to the building administrators to determine what is best in terms of social distancing within that space and or other spaces as necessary. But if you are looking to buy lunch at school, there'll be a single choice of a hot or a cold, given the day, breakfast and lunch option. The meal will be served as a grab and go only. Milk will be the only beverage of choice. There'll be no snacks or novelty items like ice cream or anything like that. On days when students are remote learning, during either hybrid instruction or 100% remote learning, we will have a curbside pickup grab and go. That'll be especially necessary for our eligible free and reduced lunch families. Details on the grab and go curbside pickup will be provided at a later date. Well, prior to the start of school, prior to September 10th, we're going to have those procedures in place for grab and go lunch. Communication, family and community engagement section. There was a variety of questions there. Here are some of the more popular ones. Schedules will be available in Parent Portal like they normally are. It's just this year is going to be not until the end of August. Once schedules are available, you'll receive a notification via phone, email, and text as you normally would, and which will allow you for you to be able to go in and review the schedule. You should have received yesterday a new Chromebook request form for the 2020-21 school year. We have a very limited supply of Chromebooks, and we've already probably exceeded the number of requests that we received via this form compared to the number of Chromebooks that we have left to hand out. But we will hand out every device we can to support online learning. Obviously, all the devices we hand out mean that there's going to be very little device usage in school when in-person learning returns. There is going to be a video presentation of some sort for our freshmen or incoming freshmen into the high schools with regards to an orientation. I know that both the principals at Ketchum and John Jay are working on that. The survey results from the parent forum survey will be posted on our website once the survey itself is closed, which will probably be at the end of this week. Health and safety. A lot of questions about health and safety, rightfully so. Airflow, we're going to bring in more fresh air. Typically, we do 10% fresh air through a ventilation system. We're going to increase that to 20 to 30%. Of course, only while the weather stays seasonably comfortable. If it gets too cold, we can't bring in that much cold air. Otherwise, we have trouble with heating. Restroom cleaning, there'll be a higher frequency of cleaning in all our restrooms. We are going to have to hire more custodial staff to do that. General cleaning Wednesdays and one of the weekend days will be a deep cleaning day when our students are in class on a hybrid learning schedule. The district did purchase a number of new disinfecting machines, which will be used to spray daily a mist of disinfectant on all surfaces in all of our schools. One of the trickiest parts with high school is the period schedule. And the fact that some students don't follow each other class to class like they might in a team environment in a junior high. You could have 9th and 10th and 11th graders all in the same class, and they all go in different directions at the next period. So how the process for how we're actually going to clean classrooms in between each use definitely remains an open-ended question, something we have to give more thought to. We had parents offer to provide cleaning products. We're being told that there isn't enough supply out there for us to buy cleaning products to allow students to clean their own desks. Not that we would normally condone that, students cleaning their own desks and using supplies every day, but that is an option we've talked about. Everyone should be definitely, if you have other questions, you should be texting them in on the chat. I don't know if you joined late. We will have time at the end of this presentation to take some questions and do the best we can to answer them. So please utilize the chat feature if you want to ask questions, and don't wait till the end of the presentation so we have time to gather them all and be able to line them up for answering. Contact tracing, Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health, which we refer to as the Department of Health, is working on an all-county, all-district unified plan for contact tracing. That will be very helpful. We look forward to seeing what that is. It's one of the things that, contact tracing is one of the components that the governor wants us to post on our website. We're certainly going to review what the Dutchess County Department of Health comes up with, and we will be posting that as part of our plan. Similar for asymptomatic cases, we look forward to hearing from the Department of Health on that. I'm not sure what the testing criteria are yet just for us, and so we look forward to seeing what information we get from them. Symptomatic cases, our plan does deal with what happens when students are symptomatic, involving isolation rooms and students having to get picked up by their families, and then a number of criteria, again, which I think we're going to stem from our contact tracing plan, will help us understand exactly what we're going to need to do in terms of who has to quarantine, who's in contact with who's a high risk in this case or that case, and take it on a case-by-case basis. On a daily basis for in-person instruction, the district will be using an application called Easy Screen. We're going to ask that you complete an online survey every day, asking about temperature checks, asking about symptoms, and affirming a number of statements. It should go very quickly. We're thinking 30 seconds. Easy Screen's been used before for concussion protocol screening for student athletes, so they are familiar with working with schools, and they're just adapting their program to do daily COVID-19 health screenings. Additional risk mitigation factors will include hand sanitizing stations in every hallway of every school. Masks will be available for everyone who needs one throughout the day, whether they soiled it, lost it, broke it, or just didn't bring one. Locks installed in the water fountain bubblers, basically the button that makes that little stream of water come out. Those will be locked, but we can still use a bottle filler, so it'll be essentially hands-free. We're going to keep windows open to the greatest extent possible. We're going to have to install extra soap dispensers in our restrooms. Students tend to rip them off the wall, so we're going to install some more. Disable hand dryers in the restrooms. We don't want to blow around the germs. Nursing staff will have extra PPE. Kitchen and serving lines and greeter desks will have clear plastic shields. Ventilation system monitoring will be ongoing as we discussed. Student lanyards and photo IDs are being considered. I think we just got to just make sure we can get all the photos and all the lanyards in time to hand out to students, so that way we know who they are, even though they're wearing masks. And we're going to have to remove any soft surfaces that are difficult to disinfect, such as area rugs or soft fabric chairs. Social distancing from a classroom perspective is a major topic. Our classrooms range in size from 600 square feet to 1,100 square feet. The main calculation we're going to use is to take the usable space of a room divided by 44 square feet per person, which will give them enough space between each individual, as well as 3 feet of additional personal space. Any additional spaces that we can't count in that overall size dimension of the room would be furniture for teachers and teaching spaces, and any other adults in the room obviously need their own space as well. So we are being told we can probably fit anywhere from 10 to 16 students in a class, depending on space. In addition, social distancing in classes like for choral or wind instrument classes, or classes that involve aerobic activity resulting in heavy breathing, that social distancing space goes from 6 feet to 12 feet. We are going to ask that students and staff wear face masks to the greatest extent possible. Obviously we can't ask them to wear it all the time, because during times when they're eating, you can't wear it. And some students undoubtedly are going to want to have to take breaks from being able to wear the mask. So we'll have to figure that out as well. But we are going to ask that even if they're in their class socially distant, we're going to have them wear their masks to the greatest extent possible. We talked briefly about social emotional learning. Just know that, that for the most part, each school has assigned support staff to meet the needs as required for all of our students, but staff will receive additional training. The district will invest in new social emotional curriculum, some of which will be embedded directly into current course curriculums. Where necessary, we will have community-based partnerships come in to provide services for our families. The schools will also provide a series of workshops throughout the school year for families and students to address common concerns that they may have from a social and emotional perspective. Special education is a very, very, very important topic. We know that, and so much so that we're going to dedicate 2 formal parent forum night events for that. It'll be on Monday, August 24th at 10 and at 4. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about these slides because they'll be redundant to some degree, and it'll be definitely spoken to in more detail on Monday, the 24th. If you haven't received it already, but I believe you probably will in a little while, Dr. Amy Watkins will be sending out a notification which would include links to these meetings, and everyone is welcome to attend. And these meetings, the links will look very similar to the one that you used for today's meeting. But basically, when school starts in September, we're going to have to hit the ground running and making sure that we're helping to identify any students who have been waiting to be referred to a committee on special education to have their to have any kind of to have their initial meeting for evaluation. We're going to have to make sure that we write IEP goals that encompass the whole concept of sometimes learning at home and sometimes learning in school, and the ability for us to be able to pivot in person versus remote learning and address those goals that don't lend themselves to either as we go. So we have to be careful as we write our goals for individual students that we do so in a way that we can successfully implement them in the school year. We've had some best practices, okay. So we have every summer a summer school program for our high schools, grades 9 to 12. We also have a summer school program. It's called Extended School Year for our students with disabilities. Both those programs ran for the first time as completely online, and to a good degree of success. We plan on taking some of the best practices learned during those online programs and bringing them into our remote learning program in the fall. We know that to the greatest extent possible, related services like speech, OT, PT, etc., when done virtually, we'll try and make them as synchronous, do synchronous instruction to the greatest extent possible. Obviously, if they're in person, all staff and students will be wearing appropriate PPE. We also know that in some cases, students are not able to learn remotely at all. Some of our highest needs students might need more in-person instruction. And when possible, we're going to try during a hybrid learning model to ensure that we have those students in 4 days a week, not 2. And we ask that parents please speak with your assistant director for special education to work out those details. Our English language learner population is also a high needs population. We have a couple hundred in our district, and we will make sure that we pay careful attention to their needs and try to support them as best we can in a remote learning environment. We know that that's not going to be easy without the exposure to the English language that they would normally get while in school. Schools will continue to support extra academic intervention services for all our general ed students as well. There are students who are not classified or have any diagnosed high needs or documented high needs or accommodations, but still are performing below grade level with their peers. It's not easy to support those students in regular full day in-person instruction, but we're certainly going to do that, and to the greatest extent possible, and extend those services as best we can to the remote learning environment, and continue to progress monitor their academic progress, and try to provide as much differentiated instruction as we can. Transportation is the last category. Last couple of slides here before we get into the live questions. So how will busing work? Ventilation on buses. To the greatest extent possible, as long as the weather permits, we will certainly be riding with our windows open and our roof vents open. We're currently routing buses to have 22 students on it. That's 1 student per seat. This can increase slightly as siblings are allowed to ride together. Private and parochial schools will have student transportation provided by the district. Whenever the private parochial school says they have school in session, we will bring those kids as we are legally and happily able to do so. Transportation routes for private and parochial schools will be posted on our website on Monday, August 24th. The public school routes will be posted on our website the week of September 14th. I saw a question about whether or not student parking pass procedures will be, how will students get parking permits? I will have to get back to you on the exact question. I don't know off the top of my head. I know that's a conversation their buildings have been having with regards to seniors and parking privileges. Why do you have to limit the number of students on a bus when they're wearing masks? We've been told by the Department of Education and/or the Department of Health that students must be socially distant and wear masks on our vehicles. We know that there's going to be medical reasons sometimes where students can't wear a mask, and in those cases, we plan on having the appropriate social distance between those students and the rest of the riders on the bus, but we'll have to take that on a case-by-case basis. After-school activities is certainly still a big unknown. We'll see what happens with athletics at the 3rd week of September. Obviously, if athletics happen, there's going to have to be a conversation about late buses. But if after-school activities are suspended, then so will our late bus run. If you want to drive your kid to school, you drive your kid to school every day, but sometimes want the option to put them on the bus. Is that okay? Yes, it is. We provide you with a bus stop time and location. If you decide to, if your child is there, we pick them up. If your child is not there, the bus keeps going. That'll be like that every day, so you will have the option. Students will not be able to take, are students taking the school bus transportation getting their temperature screened when they arrive at school? No, we're not. We're relying on homes, on families to do the temperature screening before they leave for the day. And if something changes in our health checking plan, we'll certainly let everyone know. If we drive our students to school, what are the protocol for pickup and drop off and social distancing? How will traffic be managed for drop off and pickup? I think by now, as families of incoming seniors, you know that drop off at John Jay on 52 and drop off on Myers Corners Road over by Ketchum are they're really bad to begin with. So it'll be interesting to see what our traffic patterns look like. We'll be bringing in only 50% of the schools in any given day. In addition to the fact, though, that we've heard that parents, at least 50% of our parents, according to the survey, are indicating they will drive their child every day. So if that's the case, we're looking at a quarter of our families driving students into the high schools every day. That can certainly be significant in terms of number of cars on the road, and we ask that you be patient. We'll see what the first few days look like in terms of traffic patterns and do our best to make accommodations as necessary. But we have a hard time as it is getting those cars on campus every day, every morning. Will there be strict consequences for kids who don't follow social distancing or mask wearing on the bus? Will there be monitors on the bus? There will not be monitors on the bus. Monitors, we would need about 150 monitors. That is, we're not in a position to hire monitors for them. And as far as mask wearing goes and rules of social distancing on the bus, yes, we'll expect them to be enforced. The bus driver will have to do what they normally do for handling matters in the vehicle of students who are not doing what they're asked to do. If it's a matter that they cannot address, they will refer that student to the building principal. If we're going by last names, how long will kids be on the bus? Kids will be on the bus, we hope or anticipate, for the same amount of time they are typically. I mean, we're going to route our routes, but we're only picking up half the kids at a time, and maybe even a smaller number than that. So the buses will make shorter stops, less stops. And we anticipate the bus rides to be very similar to what they normally are. So with that being said, that was all the questions and information we had presented in our presentation. So I'm going to come out of the presentation, stop sharing. I'm going to take a quick drink of water and see what we have for Q&A that we can help for the remaining about 15 minutes of this session. Let's see. First question, it's about athletics. Which fall sports are intended to be run on September 21st? Swim, ? Football, ? Well, we know that we know what our fall sports are. If the fall season, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Darren, we have to wait for further information from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association to let us know which sports will be running.
Perfect, thank you. That makes sense. All right, how will teachers be communicating with parents, particularly when assignments have not been received by particularly when assignments have not been received by the teachers? This happened frequently in the spring. It was extremely problematic. So what I'm hearing is, how will teachers let parents know that they're not getting their assignments correctly? That's a good question. I would assume that communication can how am I going to say this? When students are not doing their assignments in class in a regular in-person schedule, I don't see how it would necessarily need to be that different for when students are not doing their assignments properly in a remote learning environment. So teachers will hopefully be communicating with parents to the greatest extent possible when there's things to be worried about in terms of students' academic performance and/or handing in work. Can I pull my kids out during lunch? Theoretically, you can sign your child out at any time, I guess so. Yes, I mean, so I don't know how many people would look to do that, or I would say to the greatest extent that it's not disruptive to the building administrators. Lines of people outside during lunch periods, probably not a great idea. Well, how would we just see how that one goes? We'll have to get back to you on that. But you could always sign your student in and out of school, doctor's appointments, etc. Will seniors be able to meet their guidance counselor in person in September? I think Michelle spoke to that. Will you hold a parent senior information night? Sure. Request that to the building principals, and I'm sure they'd be happy to hold any meet and greet that they can to touch base with the community. Will the high school students be contacted by their individual teachers when the schedules come out so they have some guidance on what to do first day of school? Will the high school students be contacted by their individual teachers? Once the schedules are out, the teachers are going to have to reuse Google Classroom again, and the teachers, I assume, are going to communicate their initial class syllabus and whatever else information to the students via Google Classroom, so everyone will get a lot of emails in their student inbox. Is there a deadline for parents to notify the district if they're doing remote only or homeschooling, so you will know how many students will actually be in the building? Deadline, no. As far as notification process, I think what we're going to do is we're going to create a form and send it out to everyone and ask everyone to commit one way or the other. But we will not ask you to commit for the entire school year. We're going to ask that you commit one marking period at a time. How was the decision made to send the youngest students back first? It would seem they're the most difficult group to control: hand washing, wearing masks, germs, etc. Social. Not necessarily. So our students, some of our kindergarten, you'd be surprised. So the decision was they are certainly the most in need in terms of in-person interaction. We're talking about the youngest, our 4- and 5-year-olds. That's a very difficult age for students to try and engage in learning online. So the sooner they get to in-person instruction, the better. Will there be an app to use to answer questions every day about how they're feeling? I don't know what Iona College is using, but it says like the one Iona College is using. Yes, it's called Easy Screen. EZ space SCRN. Can students carry their own hand sanitizer if they ride on the bus? Great question. Bus drivers are being told that they can't have hand sanitizer on the bus because they are a fire risk. I have no doubt that students have always carried their own hand sanitizer on the bus in their book bags. I bet you my kid has as well. And so we'll get back to you with an official answer on that. If a student is in the classroom and socially distanced, may he or she take off their mask? We're going to encourage all students to keep their masks on to the greatest extent possible. Any air purifiers being installed? No, but we have ventilation systems. People have asked about MERV 13 filters. I will find out about that. We'll get that answer on our website. For a student that doesn't take a lunch period, can they eat in the classroom as it was done in previous years? That would seem like a logical approach. I will just double check. I don't think there's going to be any restrictions there, but obviously we'll get an answer for that question. Will the virtual school day start at 7 a.m. and at 2 p.m. with a normal 8-day period? That we will clearly identify and communicate in the next 2 weeks. Specifically, what are we waiting? Why are we waiting to start hybrid until the 28th of September? What will change between the 10th and the 28th that will allow hybrid to start? I think that life might look totally different on September 19th, 1 month from now. Right now, we don't feel like we can meet all the restrictions and constraints provided by the governor in a way that would be acceptable right from day one. So this is going to give us all a little bit more time to get ready for that. Once we move to a hybrid model, will students still have an option to remain remote if they want? Yes, we talked about that. There'll be a questionnaire, 1 marking period at a time. When exactly would 2 days a week in-person school start? I think you saw that chart. That was probably asked before I showed the chart. Is there any plan this year for full-time attendance? There's certainly a hope. As soon as we're allowed to go back to school with no constraints with social distancing, we can fit all the students back in the classroom. What needs to happen to make sure hybrid learning starts? Is there a chance that teachers union refuse to come back to in-person teaching? I definitely am not going to speculate on an entire group of individuals. What will happen with students attending BOCES classes, buses, computers? What will that look like? BOCES will offer online or remote for their Career and Technical Institute classes. Computers are a whole nother thing, a whole thing that we have to disinfect, but unless you mean computers that they bring home to do assignments at BOCES, I'm gonna have to defer to see what some of the BOCES plan particulars include. How do we request family members with different last names in the same cohort group? Just send an email to the building principal indicating which student needs to change cohort groups from A to B. We hope the first period teachers will be patient. We hope everyone will be patient. Because we're in this together. Will kids be given a lunchtime? If so, how will this work in the lunchroom with all the children eating with no masks on? Lunch is going to be part of their schedule for sure, especially for in-person, because we need to have them in a scheduled place in order for them to be where they need to be while other learning is happening in the building. We will have to make sure that social distancing rules are in effect in an area where they are eating. If a senior does not have a full schedule, will they be able to come and go as in previous years? I have not heard of any reason why early dismissal, late arrival will not still happen. So I suspect that will be the case, yes. What happens if a child doesn't return to school when hybrid begins? We do not plan on sending out our son back during the pandemic. They will continue with remote instruction. When will schedules be coming out for online and then for in-person classes? Well, the class schedules themselves will be out at the end of the month. Details for what's expected online versus in-person will be shared by the teachers. How can we commit to sending our kids if we don't know what classes they will have? Please discuss the electives. Teachers are telling students classes are being cut. That's pretty general. So I guess I would say commit to sending our kids we don't know classes they will have. You'll know what classes you have by the schedule based on what's out at the end of the month. If there are electives on there that aren't there, you could always ask the school what happened to them and then go from there. Is attendance taken in the morning for virtual? Probably for elementary, but we might have to do period by period attendance for all the other classes. Will there be transportation from John Jay to BOCES CTI if BOCES reopen hybrid sooner than Jay? I think John Jay and BOCES would need to be open for that to happen. How is Ketchum going to deal with the fact that the drop-off and pickup will be even higher than it was last year when it took 20 minutes to drop off the kids before school? Drop-off might be absolutely horrible in terms of traffic. It might not be that bad. It really depends on how many people are driving in. Again, we're only bringing in half our students, at a time, so that the population of students coming into the campus is already cut in half. It just depends on how many people will drive from there. What will busing look like? I think we answered that. Social emotional. What are the plans for seniors so they can continue to have senior events? We're going to have to get creative, just like we did last year with our seniors. It's a totally different time. Our seniors missed the prom. I think we gave them a good graduation experience considering everything that happened. Obviously there's a number of things that we want our seniors to do, remember, and experience in our schools, and we're just going to have to do the best we can in an alternative way if we can. We have special events virtually or in smaller groups like last year seniors had. All right, similar. I think I just answered that. Students who frequently take their masks off or slide them down off their noses or bully other kids by breathing on them. Will you have 3 strikes, you're out policy, mask violations, and they're expelled because they're endangering others? We will, generally speaking, I would say we take disciplinary issues on a case-by-case basis. This is a very unique time, a very unique situation. And we are going to certainly take the rules of social distancing and personal health very seriously. But the guidance is masks when you can't socially distance. Obviously, you want to do the best you can. Yes, our document does say that. We can certainly change the language in the document if we have to, but we're going to start off encouraging to the greatest extent possible. During period changes, even with half student population, will hallways still be overcrowded? Yes, we'll probably have to play around with the passing times and periods. We might have to do some sort of staggered approach but yes, I mean, sometimes depending on how many students are taking classes in what hallway, some hallways are still going to be crowded. During period changes, even with half the student population that's the same question. Are the children going to have periods and walk through the hallways between each class? When in person at the high schools and secondaries, undoubtedly. Will the virtual school day start at 7? Oh, that was answered. How will teachers communicate with parents, particularly? I did that one. Can you send out the specs on the district's Chromebooks so we could buy something similar? That we have a number of different Chromebooks and devices. We have Chromebooks that are probably 6 years old, 7 years old that still function just fine. So I would say because Chromebooks are a very simple device that they spec-wise, there isn't much to them. The probably only choice you even have to think about is how durable you want them to be at home, depending on how rough your children are on equipment at home, and whether or not you want a touch screen. But a basic Chromebook should be fine. I would like to hear how seniors participating in second-year BOCES program will continue to participate in the program and transport to and from BOCES. It's going to have to be a partnership with the BOCES. BOCES, we have to wait and see what their plan is. Obviously, when we're in school and if they're open, we will send buses with the BOCES students on it. Very concerned about grading going forward. This will affect our senior GPAs and class ranks. These are things that are looked at for colleges, especially now. We need to make sure that everyone's getting our grading program, our grading policy. Michelle already talked about that. Will be looked at, and we're going to have to make sure that we're doing something in a way that does not affect rank and GPA unfairly. So we agree. Will the teachers spend more time online with Google Meets? It's hard to learn calculus when you're not in person and have the problem in front of you. Again, we're going to have a greater focus on live teacher-student interactions on a daily basis. Will the teachers spend more time? Oh, I did that. During remote learning, will students be following a preset schedule? To be determined. If this is still being discussed, what are the drawbacks of following a preset schedule? It would be much better for students to have a schedule. Any opinion I give on that would probably be personal, so I'm gonna skip that. And if we don't decide one model or another, then we could probably better articulate what a drawback might be. Will students receive textbooks? Yes, we have to come up with a process for that. Will there be a 12th grade student meeting like this? They have lots of questions too. Well, that's a great idea. We'll leave that up to the building principals, and we'll certainly share that suggestion. Will the high school students, be contacted by their individual teachers when the school schedules come out? Well, I did that already. Yes, they'll get a note they'll get emails. Can you confirm all classes presented to students prior to COVID during schedule will still be available, and that none of our electives our seniors have chosen to have been cut due to space needed for core classes? I haven't heard any issues with core classes, and there's certainly going to be some classes I would like metal work or small engine repair that are going to be hard to do remotely. So I'm not sure the status of some of those electives, but just those examples alone would be difficult. During the hybrid, how, I'm just saying they'd be difficult. I do not know at all if they have been cut or not. I haven't heard anything about that. During hybrid, how will teachers be available for students not in school that day? To be determined. What is being done to guide our seniors with college applications and SATs? I think Michelle touched upon that a little bit. You can still contact your counselors. If a senior doesn't have a full schedule, will they be, yep, I did that. Will teachers be required to put each assignment grade on parent portal? That's a good question. We will get back to you. So not grades for marking periods, but assignments and grades. That's a good question. Are the Google Meets scheduled by teachers mandatory? Is classroom attendance mandatory? Yes, if there's an assigned time we expect students to be in class, then I would assume yes. The answer is yes. How is gym going to work online and in person? It's going to look very differently. Obviously, in person is a lot easier for PE. Some classes just lend themselves better to synchronous live in-person instruction than others. I don't have a solid answer on the rest of that. How can we commit to sending our students if we don't? Oh, I already have that. Our Google Meets scheduled mandatory. I got that. Will any classes online be to where the students can actually see the teacher? Yes, more synchronous learning would be more face-to-face learning online. Our teachers going to be in different cohorts with the students. Our teachers going to be in different cohorts with the students. Not sure. So you're saying if you're an A or a B student in the same class, we have different teachers. Certainly not for in person. We'll have to see what the online looks like. It really depends on how many families are going to be requesting full-time online remote learning, even though hybrid has taken place. Will grading be similar to past ranges? We talked about that. We're working on that. Will teachers be able to get into the building in September so they can get materials needed to write teacher recommendations for their students? Yes, I don't anticipate. I'm sure that whether it has to be on a schedule or not, I'm sure we could have staff come into the building on a scheduled basis as necessary. If our 12th graders will be the last entering the hybrid model, how will this affect the college application process? This is very unknown. Just as Michelle said, SAT scores, for example, have not been part of a calculation, is what we're hearing from colleges, because they know the problems there have been with administering SAT scores in this particular case. What are plans for seniors so they can continue to have senior events? We talked about that. When will senior parking permits be issued? We'll have to get that information for you. Parking permit. Does the teacher union have a say in whether or not teachers teach via Zoom meetings? I don't understand that question. Parking permits. Is there any plan this year for full-time attendance? We talked about that. What needs to happen to make sure hybrid learning starts? We talked about that. Will teachers in the building while teaching, or will they be off-site teaching remotely? I suspect, will teachers be in the building while teaching, or will they be off-site remotely? We've identified that we don't have enough. There's physical hardware issues when it comes to trying streaming 800 people, 800 teachers from the classrooms in the district at one time. And we definitely have some limitations because online streaming takes up a lot of bandwidth. And that will definitely be a concern. So we can't do everybody, but we'll certainly entertain those who wish to do so. Will senior activities and events, I got that. Where can we find slides presenting during these meetings? They'll be posted online probably tomorrow morning. When will we find out if we're getting a Chromebook? Early next week at the probably latest is when we'll communicate that. Is attendance taken? Oh, we did that attendance one. All right. I got to the bottom of the list. I might have missed a few. Michelle, is there anything that you wish to add?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Last question. What happens if once started, a child's not comfortable being at school? Can they switch into the middle to only remote? Possibly, probably. I mean, at some point, yeah, I mean, I would say that's probable. I would say bouncing back and forth, we would not like that. But once we decide that someone said, hey, I'm going to try it, and then they just can't handle it, too much anxiety and stress, I don't see why we wouldn't take someone out of that. Can't get in touch with guidance, need forms signed for DCC applications for seniors, and they can't get any response. Okay, please email your building principal. They are certainly working. If you do not get any kind of response from them, please email me. And Michelle, I'm going to stop recording, and everyone on the call, I'm going to stop recording. And then I'm going to, I'll just stick around for a few more moments.